Thank you, Professor Mohanty. Professor Dubey has made out very, very important points. So I will try and avoid those things and then add a few points to what he has already said, particularly on resources and all. I will not touch on that. But going back to the question posed about how it reflects, is built upon the basic values of our constitution, preamble, and all those things. I went through very carefully the document. I found democracy appearing only once in the whole document. This is in contrast to the draft policy document that was circulated to us, in which it was prominently mentioned in the vision that education is the fundamental requirement for development of a vibrant democracy. Now they have all gone. Democracy appears where? It is in the legal education section in higher education once it appears. Otherwise, democracy. In a way, it tells lots of things about it. And fundamental right comes only once in connection with the SDGs and global citizenship. And what is prominently there is fundamental duties, of course. So fundamental duties, as we know, was an amendment made and introduced during emergency. So in a way, it tells many more things than really saying anything. And I consider not really referring to properly for RTE is a part of this framework, because RTE is about fundamental right. And it is the fundamental duty that should be highlighted, not fundamental right. This is an ideological position many people have. And I have a feeling that that underscores this policy document also. The second about assumptions, it's very difficult to unearth underlying assumptions. We'll have to read between lines very often. I'll highlight a few things. But one thing that comes to my mind reading the whole thing is that the policy authors seem to consider India as a very homogeneous, standardized entity. Education in India. We know this is a highly problematic thing, because many of the suggestions that are made, they are not really sensitive to the variety and diversity that exists across the country. And also there is the kind of, when we are writing a policy after 75 years of an established system, I'm not talking of 34, for 75 years at least, if not the British. A lot of it is actually a colonial system that we still have. Now, in such a system, actually, you don't have a scope to really knock off something and then re-establish something. Much of a policy that comes after 75 years is a reform policy. It's a reconstruction policy. It is what is there, how to really reform, improve, strengthen, reinforce, and change. Some new elements can be added through that. But I think I have a feeling that when I read through, the authors don't seem to be constrained by all these things. Write whatever you want, that kind of a thing. And also ignore what has happened. You see, you have to build on what is there. And that is a problem. Issues, have they touched on? Yeah, I should say many of the critical issues that we are talking about, they all find placement. How they deal with is a separate issue. Now, having said this, let me come to some critical points. Number one, if we look at the document, it begins with a very, very misleading diagram. I don't know how many of you have observed this. It's a very misleading diagram which presents what exists now like a black box. There is no primary, there is no upper primary, there is no secondary, there is no higher secondary, there is no preschool education at all now. I think, every government document, leave alone the policy document, every government document till today have been referring to all these stages. SSA has been really providing funds also based on stages and understanding, in fact. I don't know how they can really present such a misleading document as if idea of stage is coming only today. I think this is a big problem that they have created. Now, what has happened in this change structure, supposed to be that they are presenting as the most transformative agenda, comes through this structure. That is what is being suggested by many people. If you look at it, actually, there is only one change, only one small change. Primary has been divided into two parts. That is, the grade 1, 2 goes as part of foundation. Grade 3, 4, 5 is made as a preparatory. And upper primary has been renamed as middle. Everything else remains the same. There is no structural change. But even this, I feel, is only notional. I say it is notional because on the ground, we don't want to change anything. ICDS centers will remain the same way as they are. Nowhere it is said that they will take on anything new other than what they are doing. Primary schools will remain the same as they are.
मीडिया विजिल पर भी क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं. मीडिया विजिल से अभी फोन आया है.
ठीक है, प्लीज कंटिन्यू.
So actually the primary school remains the same. So primary schools will continue as that. Now, how is this structural reform is going to be a transformative agenda? I'm fully not able to understand this at all. I don't think so. It is just presented in a very, but it also does something wrong because it disrupts the 6 to 14 age group, which is something constitutionally provided for us. And the compulsory education age group begins at 6 and ends at 14. And current existing structure maintains the integrity of this period. Now with the changed structure, actually even this is getting disrupted in a way. And second, I do not understand according to the existing legal provisions, somebody can come when they are 6 and say, I want to join the school primary. May not have gone to any preschool at all. Now what will happen to that person if the stage that we are talking is from 3 to 8 is 1? So that's why I want to say that this is only notional. I don't see anything on the ground really going to make any difference for that, but that is presented as the most important thing in this document. In fact, that is being said as the transformative one. Now there are many other things that have been there as the issues. Many important issues have been identified. For instance, early childhood education should be there for everyone. I think nobody can question that. We should, the learning levels of the children are inadequate, and then we should improve the basic literacy and numeracy skills among the children. I don't think we can question. These are all the sections that are there. Or we say that, the children join but they drop out, and we need to really ensure that they are all brought back and then they complete. Nobody can question this. Or even if we say, for instance, the school education is very textbookish and we should introduce skill orientation, and these are all very nicely, there is no problem about identifying issues. But how do we engage with these issues is the problem that comes. I'll give one or two examples. For instance, we talk of ECC when we say there is a very long acronym that has been created called NCPFECCE. I don't know, it's such a long one. And it's a separate curriculum framework for early childhood care and education. I don't know, which means that in the NCF, we had integrated early childhood education with the school curriculum. Now, is it going to be separated? I have a question. I am not able to understand this, how this will come separately in that pattern. And second, they have said very surprisingly, they said that this whole integration of this integrated stage, foundational stage integration, will be decided and controlled by MHRD. It is written controlled by MHRD. It is written. You can read the thing. I wonder why MHRD should come into picture. This is something that happens in the field, which the state governments run their primary schools. If you want any change to come, why should MHRD come? I am not able to understand, partly because we have struggled earlier also to bring preschool education of 2 years into education agenda, which has been fought against, and then we know it has not happened. The second one about the literacy numeracy skills that they are talking about. It's a very important area again. But how do we plan to do? See, a policy coming at 75 years is, as I said, not necessarily very new, but it should give us new pathways for reaching it. Because we are not going to change the goals. Goals will remain the same. We are going to repeat it. But what are the new pathways that we are creating? So what is the pathway that we are creating for better learning, basic learning among the children? Sometimes very bizarre in a way. Number one, they say that, a national repository of digital resources. I want to ask, you are talking about reading and writing and arithmetic, and what will national repository of digital resources do here? How will they help for the primary school teacher in the village? I am not able to understand. Second, they have said something which is again dangerous in my view, is the state government will prepare special implementation plans and they can use all viable medium for reaching and ensuring that the children learn. What does it mean? So you are suggesting for creating separate parallel substreams where private people will participate from outside and ensure children will learn. What happens to school? I just want to ask a simple question. Why are primary schools created? Primary schools are created so that children learn reading and writing and arithmetic. What will primary school do if you are creating parallel streams of this kind to achieve this goal? Another very kite flying they have done is there will be a large number of peer tutoring that will happen. This is a new idea that has been, everywhere presented in that fashion. But I want to ask, if there is no teaching going on in primary school, how will peer tutoring take in the primary school? Peer tutoring may be all right in a private school where the 9th standard children will go to the 3rd standard children and do something. But what happens in a primary school where teaching itself is so difficult? What peer tutoring will happen? Will this really bring about change? This is the problem that I am. There are also something that have come which is very, it's a bluffing also happens in the maybe it's a wrong word that I'm using, but it is bluffing only. For instance, there is a statement, all of you should read this. It says morning hours after a nutritious breakfast can help study of cognitively demanding subjects. This is presented that research has told this. I can't understand it. So if you read if you have nutritious breakfast, then you can study mathematics. Are they meaning like that? I can't understand this. Why such things should be said in a policy document that you are writing? There is also other thing that they have done, which is also another dangerous thing. They have said that instead of hot meals being served, maybe we can give chana and jaggery. What does chana and jaggery represent? It's laughable for us at the moment, but what chana and jaggery represents is something that we have really warded off all these years, resisted. That is packaged food. There has been tremendous pressure on the government to introduce packaged food, particularly the biscuit lobby, that instead of hot meals, because the Supreme Court has said that hot meals should be served, otherwise children may not get that. Now, that has been, lot of pressure has been there. During the last 20 years, there has been resisted, this biscuit lobby. Now, this is a very indirect way. When you say this can be done, it's not jaggery and this. They are not meaning jaggery and this, but a packaged food can be replace this. I think these are very, very dangerous things also. And where are we moving with this? And why should we write all these things in terms of improving basic literacy in university? You should have said that nowhere it is written how teaching learning process in primary schools will improve, how primary school functioning will improve. Nowhere it is written, in fact. If the schools don't change, schools don't improve, how will all these things happen? Now, two other quick points I want to make. There is a very long section, longest subsection on curriculum and pedagogy. This is the longest in the whole document, in fact. You can see the subsection that are there. And what have we done in this? Like many other areas that we have done, here also we have repeated what is already there. I don't find anything new. It is a repetition of old observations. It's a very good long essay, I can say that. But it is all presented as if it is new curriculum, as if there is no curriculum at all now. Why there is no reference here to NCF 2005? There is so much work that has happened. Should we not build on the work that has happened, or we want to knock off and then really create again afresh everything in that fashion? I'm particularly surprised that there is no reference at all to anything, and also the issues that have been introduced, like for instance work. The vocational component will be introduced from grade 6, they have said. We all know, people who have studied education know that this is not new. This is something that was suggested in the early stages of schooling we should introduce, was suggested, leave alone Gandhi suggesting it, leave that, I am not really referring to Gandhi, but Moderator Commission also suggested of integrating. They created something called a structure called multi-purpose schools where work will happen. And we know that there are so many umpteen number of committees have started on vocational education and work and all those things. And finally, what these people are suggesting, I would suggest you, they call it fun projects to be introduced for this. So I am afraid that finally what will come in reality is a repackaged work experience, which already we have. Work experience that came in, which took another shape called socially useful productive work. I think we are returning all of it in a new package. Beyond that, I don't see anything, in fact. Also on mother tongue, I will make only one quick point. Professor Dubey has already mentioned. When they say mother tongue up to grade 5, what reminds me of this is that the British policy that the vernacular primary schools will be taught there will be vernacular primary schools which will be used for expansion of primary education. Whereas the secondary schools which have primary section, they will continue to teach in English. Basically, this is what we are telling. Why I am saying this is that in the regulation section, they have made it very clear that those schools which are controlled, funded, partially or fully, and managed by central government, they will be outside the framework of state level regulatory bodies. What does it mean? That means the CBSE schools, the private schools affiliated to CBSE schools will have a different one. What we are doing what may happen only if we implement in some state governments, there are some aspirational parents who send their children to the low fee charging private English medium schools. Good or bad, I don't want to comment. Now probably bureaucrats will come heavily on them and more corruption will happen. I don't see there is any change really that they are thinking about in this. But holding all these things out without making any change significantly is what bothers me. Teachers, I'll just take two more points only, quick points I will make. One is teachers. I will not say much because Professor Batra will deal with teacher education. I hope I would request her to really adequately deal with that. There is no reference. Since you raised about issues, one of the biggest issues that we are facing today about teachers is not only about inadequacy of number of teachers, but the teacher cadre has been completely disrupted. We do not know what is professional cadre of teachers in this country. We have para teachers, contract teachers, this teacher, Shiksha Sahayak, all kinds of things. And they are talking very high sounding noble profession and then how teachers status should be returned and all those things. But there is no reference to the current problem of teacher community at all. And without rectifying this, how will teacher quality will improve at all? This is a big issue. And when they talk about various stages and all, I think they forgot about teachers are required for various stages. Because all that I find about teacher education, I would like Professor Batra to tell me if there is anything more, is only reference to B.Ed. There is no reference to anything else other than B.Ed. Okay, and is B.Ed the qualification for early childhood teachers also? Will be the qualification for preparatory stage teachers? Will be the qualification for higher secondary teachers? What exactly are they meaning? What is this B.Ed they are talking? Are they going to change the career structure of the people? Will they pay the same salary for all the teachers? Did they all get the B.Ed of the same kind? The last point I want to make and end is that just as Professor Dubey pointed out that you say all these things, but you don't talk about money. And therefore it doesn't really go anywhere and we will not talk. I also want to say one more thing. Every time a policy comes or a new idea that comes and which doesn't work or which is not implemented, we say, oh, policy is very good, implementation is not good. This has become a habit of the middle class in this country, which I don't agree. In fact, policies are wrong, that's why they are not implemented. But even if we agree with this, why implementation doesn't happen? It is because of the administrative machinery operators that we have created. There is no word about reforming the administration in this whole document, in fact. There is no word about reforming the administration. For me, administrative reform has to begin from the secretariat because 90% of the problem arises out of the secretary, concentration of power in the secretary and the minister. For instance, many would know that, if a primary school teacher from Karnataka has to come to Delhi for a training program, the file will go to the secretary. And when it goes to the secretary, it goes to the minister. We need total reform from top to bottom, starting from the secretariat to the headmaster in the school. But there is no reference to administrative reforms at all. And that I feel is that what is likely to happen with no money, no administrative reform, talking all these things would mean what we have been facing for the last 75 years. We talk many things, but it doesn't happen. And we go back and talk again the same thing. I want to ask a question that after 73 years, will we write something which we are very serious of implementing, which we can implement, and we will deliver? Why don't we really write a policy document which is deliverable, and therefore after 5 years we can say, of this, yes, of the 100 things that I said, at least 80% I have achieved. But we go back after 75 years again that nothing has been done. And universalization, we know, the constitution, promised 10 years. Then another committee said 16 years. Kothari Commission said by 1985. National Policy on Education 86 said in 5 years in lower primary, in 10 years full elementary. It didn't happen. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan promised again. Then we had the Fundamental Right Amendment. But we are struggling even now. Why do we want to write a policy if we don't want to really achieve that at all? I think we need people deserve in this country a policy which is more honest, not really like saying things which we don't want to do or we cannot do. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Govinda. Thank you. You put it absolutely right. These 2 points, one about the centralization of the whole system, MHRD being given power to supervise curriculum making, and then no plan of administrative reforms in education sector, and treating as if we have had a black box, as if nothing has happened in the past. And some of your very specific critiques at every level of these suggestions are very important. Thank you very much. Especially about the comparison with the British vernacular system. Thank you very much. We have a number of very interesting questions. We have about 40 minutes for discussion. I'm so glad everybody spoke within time, more or less. And I will take a few questions which have been communicated on the chat box. And before I read, I will request all the three panelists, when they respond, I think we'll have 2 or 3 rounds. In one of the rounds, I would like them to address what we should do, how we can get around this crisis using the existing institutions, existing center-state framework, existing political situation, and what resources do we have, if we have any, to really pursue our objectives while continuing to critique this policy. I think you will please think about that and give us some insights. Now, in the first round, let us take some of these questions which have been in the chat box. Here is one. There is no mention of accessibility, reasonable accommodation, universal design for children or students with disabilities. Students with disabilities. How are they going to be included in the education system? Just by saying it won't happen. It is equally applicable to every child, student with disability everywhere. So that's one. Let me read out 3 questions right now. This is from Snigdha Sarkar from West Bengal. The next question, what will be the economic impact of the NEP? Is the government capable of making changes to the budget and allocate more funds to education, or is that not required? This is from Dr. R.S. Singh. Another question. One person reflects on the lack of mention of common school system in the policy document. Maybe Professor Dubey can elaborate on that. Yes, I think he should. Next, I think let me give you a few more questions and take them in one go in the first round. Arvind Mishra says, how to use education to combat against the trend of growing inequality in our society. I think this has been addressed to some extent by the speakers, but you can say more on that. Question of Facebook live stream. The question is, what will be the effect of multiple exit points and distribution of certificate? Will it improve the dropout rate or not? Then what are the possible implications of increase in investment of foreign private capital in education and a gradual withdrawal of social responsibilities of the state? What is the nature of knowledge being produced then? What about access? Maybe one more I will read and then stop, because there are so many questions. Professor Govinda, in line of your point of administrative reforms, which is so rightly pointed out, should we also not ally against that? It is government which designs the policy and implements it, funds it, and also evaluates it. It's sheer conflict of interest and just a status quo that they want to perpetuate this existing system, that means. Your thoughts on this, please. That is from Mahasweta Biswas. Let's take these questions, whichever you would like to take.
First beginning with your question about how do we go around. I do not know a policy is decided. There are two things about this policy that I want to say. One is this is called national education policy, but I don't know how politically the legitimacy can be attributed to this, because it has not gone to parliament. Till now, India had the tradition that every policy, why only independent India? Even during British period, in fact, the major policy statements came after approval, after it goes to the British Parliament, in fact. This is the first time that we are issuing such a big thing called national education policy, which has not gone to the parliament at all. I don't know how exactly we should really look at it as the legitimacy of a policy of this kind. It's a central government policy. That's the way I really look at it.
Okay.
Second, about the budget, I do not know whether budget will come or not. What is likely to happen, I am told that it's already in the work, that there will be a program of action. Like what happened after 1986 policy, there is a program of action. They may change the wordings so that it doesn't look like that. Like you must have realized this is national education policy. It is not national policy on education.
Okay. Yeah.
Or not. So they may make some change like that, cosmetic change. But why I'm bringing this is that in all likelihood, what will happen is that there will be another series of centrally sponsored schemes, and which has destroyed this country, in fact. In my view, education has been destroyed by the centrally sponsored scheme. They have never helped anything, and I think education was better administered by the state governments before this so many centrally sponsored scheme, and SSA came and DPEP came. I think whatever it may be, in minimal way, state governments are doing better job at that time than all these things. I do not know this is what is likely to happen. About two things I want to quickly say about foreign private capital. I don't know whether you people have observed, there is a very strange phrase created, private philanthropy. I'm not able to understand what is private philanthropy. Philanthropy is for public purposes. It cannot be a private philanthropy. Private entrepreneurship can be there. How can private philanthropy can be there? This is very strange. It's a backdoor entry of privatization, in my view, actually. Because when somebody, a private corporate house creates a school where the school is run completely by the fee structure, fee collected from the students, it is not philanthropy. It's entrepreneurship, in fact. Good, right or wrong, it's educational entrepreneurs. Yeah. So I think this private philanthropy is a very dangerous phrase that has been created. It is for actually, it will allow the channel for not only foreign capital, even Indian capitalists also are going to misuse this. The last about bureaucracy, I think, what is one thing that I didn't mention that has happened is that this policy has added, we already have so many committees and task forces and commissions, and then so many other things, institutions and all those things in this country, and we have added another 20-30 more of this kind, if you read the whole thing, and this will only create the burden of the bureaucracy. The problem of administration in this country is the burden of bureaucracy. And if it doesn't happen, it is because the same bureaucracy handles finances, same bureaucracy handles control of the schools, same bureaucracy handles the other part of policy making also. I think we need to create more autonomy to the action at the field, which is only we talked about. Even in higher education, we have not been able to create autonomy of the kind. I don't know how we are going to really do this. This policy seems to have a wrong notion that by creating regulatory bodies, administrative framework will change. Regulation doesn't change. Regulation is only to see whether administration is happening properly or not. Regulatory framework will not change strengthen the administration per se. We need reforms there, which includes decentralization.
And there are three more questions I can add. One is, are the entrance examinations which are focused instead to replace the board examinations going to be instruments of further inegalitarian development? Then I think all of you should also take up another question. Has the gender question been addressed critically, centrally enough in this policy? There is a good comment on the whole draft. It promotes outcomes without inputs. I'm sure you all will agree with that. Yes, Professor Govinda.
Now, I'll make 2-3 points. One is, taking on from where Professor Batra mentioned, this SCDGs. If you look at the earlier, if you remember the earlier draft, there was something called URGs. That is under URGs, under-resourced groups or underserved group or something like that. Underrepresented groups. There are so many acronyms. Underrepresented groups, and there were many people who commented that you cannot put all of them in one basket. What they did, they didn't change the basket, only changed the name. They put a different name. That's all what they have done. Girls, of course, have been taken out a little bit, and then there is a separate thing said about the educationally disabled. That's what they have done otherwise. But the mechanism they are thinking still is the same. They will create, like the economic zone, they will create special education zones. It's again a new name, nomenclature for what earlier we used to do called the educationally backward blocks. What else are we going to do after all? We will identify the blocks which has predominantly scheduled castes. So this is a special economic education zone. This is what we are going to do. So I can already see what would be the new set of centrally sponsored schemes that is going to come for distribution of money or withholding of money, because the centrally sponsored schemes have also become a means of political leverage with different party governments which are there in the states. We know that. So this is what I find. Now about the RTE, what can we do now that they have pushed it aside? Is that I think we need to raise a political campaign on this. Just like the talking academic things is not enough. I think the voice has to be raised politically in terms of how can you really ignore the most important thing in the country, which is the fundamental right of the children, that you are not really referring properly as to how will you meet the fundamental right. This should come as a political voice. And I would request RTE to really gather this political voice and raise this political voice. Then only something can happen. Otherwise, I don't think anything will happen. Now, there was some reference made about this Orissa, what is happening about the merger and all. Now, why is it happening? It is not just Niti Aayog alone. Niti Aayog actually entered into a tripartite agreement, that is the government, state governments, Niti Aayog and Boston consultants. So this is actually, we have already handed over our system for international consultants to really rectify, because we have no understanding. We have no understanding of our country. This is Atmanirbhar. We are Atmanirbhar. Therefore, we hand over to Boston consultants. You want to improve our primary school, they have to come and then tell us. And what they are telling is that close down your schools. And we seem to be happy closing down. Unfortunate, this is what is happening in Orissa, sir, Professor Mohanty in University. And this is what is happening in Jharkhand. 3 states have signed. tripartite agreement of this kind for other people to tell what to do in our own primary schools. This is unfortunate. You don't have to bring foreign investment for this. We are already doing all these things. Now, one question about this 4-year secondary that are there, which may lead to dropout that you are asking. Actually, I am not really bothered about this stage, restructuring they are talking, because it's only notional. It will remain only on the paper. It will never happen. I will tell you one example. Why I'm saying I am not bothered at all is that where is 4 years today? 4 years is there in the CBSE schools. You go to UP and Bihar, you have inter colleges which are doing the 11th and 12th. And you go to Karnataka, there is a junior college which is doing 11th and 12th. Andhra Pradesh, there is another junior college which is doing PU college or somewhere. Maharashtra junior colleges are doing in this. So where is this 4 that we are talking about? It is about CBSE. Unfortunately, I feel very often, repeatedly, I get the feeling when I read this policy that all that is there in the name of school in front of them seems to be the private CBSE affiliated schools which run classes from grade 3 to grade 12. Yes, this restructuring will happen in those schools because it's possible to integrate the age 3 to 8. You can integrate as one group. That is possible because children, when they are 3-year-old, they come and they leave when they are 18-year-old. So are we writing a policy for this CBSE affiliate? You will be shocked to know, sir, that how many CBSE affiliated schools are there in this country? It's only around 20,000. This includes CBS, it includes Navodaya Vidyalayas and Kendriya Vidyalayas also. But how many schools we have? We have 1.5 million schools that we are talking. And these are 20,000 schools. How can you write policy keeping that as your model? And that seems to be the problem in this restructuring of the stages that we are talking.
Thank you. Your last statement, yeah.
There is a question that is there, mathematical problem. Somebody said,
right.
How can you have these stages? Because you are talking of public examination kind, external evaluation to be done, testing at 3, 5, and 8.
Yeah.
Actually, this kind of inconsistencies, the document is full of such inconsistencies. There are what is said in one, you will find that in another recommendation, it doesn't really match with that. Because although they have said all these stages, they continue to use primary and elementary, as though primary and elementary exist as they are. In fact, this kind of inconsistency is full of it. There is reference to chapters, but there are no chapters. You can read it, in fact. There is no chapter, but there are reference to chapter word in the document. That may be because when they made it smaller, shorter, they forgot that they should change. There is also, it should please us, in fact, there is one place where they talk of universal, free and compulsory education from age 3 to age 18 in one place. Although earlier they have not proposed anything in the review. If you go to the regulation section, in the review, what do they review? When they review periodically, they will review the availability of free compulsory education, universal free compulsory education from age 3 to age 18. If there is no policy like that, how did they review? I don't know. So it's full of such inconsistencies. I don't want to really take into that.
Thank you. Well, friends, I think this has been an extraordinarily useful discussion. And there are 3 main points. One, RTE must be reiterated and expanded, at least in our framework. Professor Dubey reiterated about the common school system, and that still should be our goal, and how the conditions in the local environment can be created by persuading political parties, state governments to make the existing government schools move towards common schools, making the private schools superfluous if possible. And common school has to be the goal. So that is number one. RTE has been ignored in this draft, in this policy statement, no longer a draft, though it lacks legitimacy until it is passed in the parliament. So it has been ignored, and we have to reiterate our full commitment to RTE and to strengthen it. Number 2, I think the socially, educationally disadvantaged groups. I think that's a very unfortunate way of handling inequalities and calling it a equitable and quality inclusive education. It is not. And therefore, all sections of our society, they are political and social organizations, political parties, groups, Dalit groups, gender groups, Adivasi groups, Adivasi youth groups, Dalit women groups, workers' children welfare groups, construction worker groups. All groups should have a critique, a sectoral critique, sectoral assessment of this policy, and have an agenda cut out how to make their constitutional right possible by moving in the direction of new education policy that they would like to have. This is number 2. Number 3, I think the centralization that we have seen is unprecedented. Cooperative federalism has given a go-by, and these 4 or so regulatory bodies which seek to centralize everything, I think they have to be challenged. And the concurrent list gives enough power to the states to have their regulatory bodies that can decentralize regulation also, and supervision also, and coordination also to district and block level. And panchayats have to be brought into the implementation of the RTE in the full sense of the term that we are discussing. Therefore, decentralization has to be pursued as a goal, and this centralization has to be questioned. I know it is difficult because the resources are centralized in the hands of the state, hands of the central government, and central government pledges to give more resources to the private sector than to the public investment in education, health, and the like. So we have to keep on pressurizing, use the electoral weapon, movement weapon, and the way they have critical role to play in different sectors. We have to use those critical roles that people have to pressurize and demand reallocation of resources to education and health particularly, and with a view to promoting equality. Finally, here is a notion of education. It says that it combines humanities and with skill, but that is only on paper. The underlying motive is to robotize education. The focus on skill and vocationalization, and make it so dependent on the net and the IT and the global network of technological things and capital intensive technology, making it impossible for the poor and the deprived to take full advantage of new education, as we have seen during COVID, during online facilities of education, and so on. And that is going to be the new norm. So privatization, foreign institutions coming to India, and this whole motive has a new definition and a very blatantly clear definition of education as skill, not as integral development of mind and skill and values, which the RTE Act said in the preamble, or the Common School Education Commission report had talked about in the beginning. In other words, we have to really work hard to promote humanities, liberal arts, social sciences, and also make RTEs the line of most important work. Only then the base for having bright people come from a wider base for research and innovation and higher education and development, that will emerge. If the base is weak, then the entire system is weak. And this new education policy threatens to keep the base weak, divided, unequal, privatized, and robotized, besides communalized. We didn't discuss very much on communalization as an underlying theme. So with these words, I once again thank you for a great discussion. May I invite Ambarish Rai to have the last word. Ambaresh.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for a wonderful moderation and people will get involved into that. और मैं इसी के साथ साथ जो हमारे आज के स्पीकर्स थे, एमिनेंट स्पीकर्स, उनको भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ और ऑडियंस को भी. एंड वी विल कीप इट ऑन और नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी को लेकर के चर्चा और हम लोग करेंगे और फिर देन वी विल, जैसा आप लोगों ने कहा कि एक पॉलिटिकल मूवमेंट अराउंड द यूनिवर्सलाइजेशन ऑफ एजुकेशन, नॉट ओनली universalization education, but extension of the RT will be the core issue. Whole school education should be the justiciable right for every child in this country. तो वो लेकर के हम लोग आगे बढ़ेंगे और इस पर मोबिलाइजेशन देश भर में किया जाएगा. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. एक वंडरफुल डिस्कशन, वेरी वेरी. यस सर,
Bye bye.
थैंक यू.